The cultural reverence for oatmeal as the unassailable cornerstone of cardiovascular health is perhaps the most enduring and widely propagated medical illusion in modern geriatric nutrition. For individuals over the age of 65, the daily ritual of consuming a warm bowl of porridge is often executed with the sincere belief that it is actively sweeping the arteries clean and fortifying the heart against the ravages of time. However, when we transition from nutritional folklore to hard molecular biochemistry, a terrifying reality emerges. The manner in which the vast majority of aging adults prepare, sweeten, and consume their morning oats essentially transmutes a potentially therapeutic grain into a high-velocity metabolic disruptor. This disruption aggressively accelerates the exact cardiovascular pathologies the oatmeal is intended to prevent. To understand why your morning cereal might be silently driving the stiffening, calcification, and narrowing of your arterial network, we must ruthlessly dismantle 12 deeply entrenched false beliefs that currently dictate the aging diet. The first and most catastrophic deception lies in the physical processing of the grain itself. The pervasive belief that instant or quick-cooking oats are biologically equivalent to intact, steel-cut groats is a lethal misunderstanding of glycemic kinetics. When a manufacturer pre-gelatinizes, steams, and rolls the oat seed into a microscopic fragile flake to decrease your cooking time, they are physically destroying the complex architectural matrix of the starch. When this highly processed flake enters the digestive tract of a 70-year-old, it requires virtually zero enzymatic effort to break down. The digestive system flash converts these instant oats into pure glucose, flooding the portal vein with a massive, uncontrolled glycemic tsunami. In an aging body already plagued by decreased insulin sensitivity, this creates a violent postprandial blood sugar spike. This sudden influx of glucose is profoundly toxic to the cardiovascular system. It initiates a process called glycation, where sugar molecules physically bind to the proteins lining the inner walls of the blood vessels, causing the delicate endothelium to become stiff and inflamed. The second false belief directly compounds this glycemic damage: the sweetened sabotage. Millions of seniors believe that adding natural sweeteners like honey or large handfuls of dried fruit elevates the health profile of the porridge. In clinical reality, you are delivering a concentrated payload of liquid fructose to an aging liver. Unlike glucose, which can be utilized by the skeletal muscles for energy, fructose must be metabolized exclusively by the hepatic machinery. When the liver is overwhelmed by this morning fructose surge, it activates de novo lipogenesis, instantly converting the sugar into triglycerides. These triglycerides are then exported into the bloodstream and deposited directly into the walls of the arteries. This process forms the dense necrotic core of an atherosclerotic plaque, leading to long-term cardiovascular danger. The third myth involves a fundamental misunderstanding of antioxidant bioavailability. Oats contain a unique, highly potent class of phenolic compounds known as avenanthramides, which are clinically proven to suppress inflammatory cytokines and inhibit the oxidation of LDL cholesterol. However, the common practice of preparing oatmeal with skim or low-fat dairy milk acts as a chemical neutralizing agent. The casein proteins found in cow's milk possess a high binding affinity for these specific polyphenols. When the milk mixes with the oats, the casein proteins physically lock onto the avenanthramides, creating a complex molecule that is too large to pass through the intestinal wall. The antioxidants simply pass through the digestive tract unabsorbed, rendering the oatmeal's primary cardiovascular defense mechanism entirely inert. The fourth false belief stems from the fat-free fallacy. Older adults, still terrorized by the debunked lipid hypotheses, often consume their porridge entirely devoid of dietary fat. Yet, the fat-soluble vitamins critical for vascular elasticity, particularly vitamin E and vitamin K, absolutely require the presence of dietary lipids to form the microscopic micelles necessary for intestinal absorption. By consuming a fat-free bowl of starch, you ensure that these vital, artery-protecting nutrients remain trapped in the gut. leaving your cardiovascular system starved of the very tools it requires to maintain its structural flexibility. As we push deeper into the biochemistry of the grain, we encounter the fifth and perhaps most medically dangerous myth, the mineral thief. There is a widespread assumption that grains can be consumed immediately after boiling. This ignores the evolutionary defense mechanisms of the plant kingdom. All unfermented and unsoaked grains, including oats, are heavily fortified with phytic acid. Phytic acid is a powerful biological chelator. When it enters the digestive tract, it violently binds to essential minerals like calcium, magnesium, zinc, and iron, forming insoluble phytate complexes. For an aging demographic already at severe risk for osteoporosis and vascular calcification, this is a silent catastrophe. Your healthy breakfast is actively stripping your blood of the magnesium required to relax vessels and the calcium required to maintain skeletal density. To disarm this biological weapon, the oats must undergo a prolonged soaking process, ideally 12 hours in a slightly acidic medium. This activates phytis, the enzyme that dismantles the phytic acid structure, releasing the trapped minerals for absorption. The sixth myth is that oatmeal is a complete breakfast. In reality, a standard bowl of porridge is a state of severe protein bankruptcy. It provides negligible, incomplete plant protein, leaving the 70-year-old body in a catabolic state, accelerating sarcopenia, the loss of skeletal muscle mass. As you lose muscle, your body loses its primary sink for disposing of blood glucose, driving up fasting blood sugar levels. This increases metabolic strain on your heart. Reclaiming metabolic integrity starts with proper preparation and structural nutrition. The seventh false belief is the notion that dietary fiber alone is sufficient to scrub the arteries clean. While the soluble fiber beta-glucan found in oats is indeed an excellent sponge for trapping bile acids in the gut and lowering circulating LDL levels, it cannot physically repair a calcified artery or stabilize a vulnerable, inflamed plaque. True vascular repair after the age of 65 requires the simultaneous presence of nitric oxide precursors and specific anti-inflammatory catalysts. If your porridge is not actively fortified with these exact cofactors, such as ground flaxseed for its lignans or a therapeutic dose of Ceylon cinnamon, the beta-glucan will merely lower a number on a lab report while your arteries continue to silently stiffen and harden. The focus on a single cholesterol metric is a medical misdirection that ignores the fundamental requirement of endothelial elasticity. The eighth myth is a culinary error with profound hormonal consequences: the temperature and timing of consumption. Most individuals consume their oatmeal while it is steaming hot, fresh off the stove. This maximizes the rapid digestion of the starches. However, if the oatmeal is allowed to cool slightly before consumption, a process known as starch retrogradation occurs. The starch molecules realign themselves into a rigid structure known as resistant starch. This resistant starch escapes digestion in the small intestine. It arrives intact in the colon, where it serves as the ultimate prebiotic fuel for your microbiome, specifically feeding the bacteria that produce butyrate, a fatty acid that acts as the master systemic anti-inflammatory molecule for your entire vascular network. This process provides a master anti-inflammatory shield for your entire vascular network. The ninth myth is the dangerous belief in dietary monotony. The idea that eating oatmeal every single day is the pinnacle of health. In the aging gut, where motility naturally slows and microbial diversity frequently collapses, the repetitive intake of a single grain can lead to dysbiosis. The microbiome thrives on a broad spectrum of varying botanical fibers to maintain its defensive capabilities. The daily consumption of a highly viscous mass like oatmeal can also contribute to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. As starches ferment rapidly in the upper tract, they cause chronic bloating and systemic inflammation that radiates back to the cardiovascular system. The 10th myth addresses the gluten-free illusion. While oats themselves do not contain gluten, they are frequently cross-contaminated during industrial processing. For older adults with increased intestinal permeability, this hidden gluten exposure acts as a daily inflammatory trigger. This keeps the immune system in a state of hypervigilance that actively damages the arterial walls. The 11th myth is the caloric justification, the belief that because oatmeal is healthy, portion sizes do not matter. A massive, overflowing bowl of complex carbohydrates still demands a massive volume of insulin to process. This hyperinsulinemia is precisely the chemical signal that drives cellular aging and arterial stiffness in the aging body. The 12th and final myth is the ultimate fallacy, the belief that a single food can counteract a sedentary lifestyle. You can optimize the soaking, fortify the fats, and perfect the cooling temperature. But without physical movement, the metabolic benefits are severely blunted. The muscles must be engaged to open the GLUT4 transporters, pulling the glucose out of the blood and preventing vascular damage. Transforming your morning meal from a metabolic trap into a longevity protocol requires the total, uncompromising rejection of these 12 myths. You must transition from the lazy convenience of instant sugar-laden processing to the deliberate biological strategy of whole, soaked, and fortified grains. Cease viewing your porridge as a standalone, magical solution and treat it as a highly engineered delivery vehicle for fats, polyphenols, and proteins. By understanding the biochemistry of phytic acid and the necessity of endothelial protection, you reclaim the ultimate authority over your metabolism. You actively shift your body from a state of silent, starch-driven inflammation to a state of optimized, precise cellular repair, ensuring your first meal provides the structural integrity and vascular protection required to thrive with fierce independence. Achieve cardiovascular resilience in your later decades, securing a future defined by strength and a strong, effortless heartbeat.